Good morning to you. Good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. You. Good morning to you. You. Good morning. Good morning to you. And many more. Good morning, and welcome to Black Table Talk Daring Dialogues. We are continuing to celebrate our history through Black History Month. We are continuing to celebrate our triumphs over enslavement. We are continuing to celebrate Black love, Black peace, Black presence, Black rights, all of the things that make our culture and our experience what it is. And I want to encourage you today to continue to press on, to continue to move in your power, to not be deterred. Most of the people, by the time that you watch this, I will probably be offline because Facebook is hiding most Black content creators' actual lives, and so people don't see them until after they're done. Nevertheless, we're going to continue. Nevertheless, we are going to continue to do what we do here, which is teach. So, if you're with me for the first time, you can tell me where you are signing in from. Because we have a different crowd on YouTube, I am going to put some of my YouTube restrictions on because unfortunately over there, people just don't know how to be civil and follow directions. So I'm going to put my subscriber mode on over there, and you have to be subscribed at least 10 minutes to be able to comment on YouTube. All right, we have quite a bit of reading to do today. I'm going to start out with our devotional by Dennis Kimbrough, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. He's the author of that book, but this one is called Daily Motivations for African American Success. I highly recommend it. It is, I was able to get this copy for like $9, but it's just really, really good encouragement and motivation to sort of start your day, cleanse your palate. If you're like me, I try not to get on and look at social media before 10 o'clock in the morning because I know it's going to be inundated with people's views and thoughts and opinions of what's happening in our current political climate, which is not good. But at the same time, I don't want that to be the first start of my day. So for me, one of the things that I do is I start my day off with some breathing practice, with some meditation or some prayer, and then I dive into some inspiring words to encourage. So today's inspiring words, February 18th, the title is Waiting to Exhale. James Baldwin said this: fires can't be made with dead embers. The lessons of living center around health and healing. Health is the greatest gift in the world. We do not need to add anything to our lives to be healed. We need only to tune into the flow that the Creator is always whispering in our ear. Health is our natural condition. There's a legend about a butcher who used the same knife for 20 years without having to sharpen it once. The townspeople were astounded, and one day one of his customers asked him, "How can you do so much cutting and keep the blade sharp?" "It's very simple," he explained. "I do not try to cut through bone or gristle. Where I feel resistance, I move the knife slightly and make the necessary adjustment. My knife is always speaking to me, and I work in harmony with it. The physical body speaks to us in the same ways, and if we are willing to listen to its messages, we can avoid disease. Instinctively, our bodies speak to us through the process of breathing. An infant's first breath is followed by approximately 600 million more before he breathes his last. In between, we wait with bated breath and enjoy breathing in breathtaking scenery. When tired, we take a breather. When nervous, we take a deep breath. And when out of danger, we breathe freely. Few people pay much attention to breathing, but doing so can help us to regulate our health. Here's a quick experiment to demonstrate the healing effects of breathing. Start breathing quickly, taking shallow, irregular breaths, and close your eyes. What kind of thoughts arise within you? Since your breathing is shallow when you feel stress, whatever is stressful in your life probably will come to mind. The lesson is twofold. First, our breathing influences our mental state, and second, when upset, we should breathe more slowly. A deep breath enlivens our nervous system. To revive yourself, simply stand up with your hands held high and take in all the air you can. Wait a few moments and then exhale. You will feel more alive, much more positive, and much healthier. So let's do it together. Hands held high. Some of you have been holding your breath since January 20th. It's time to exhale a little bit. I know things are not the way that most of us want them to be right now in this country, but here's what I suggest you do. Take care of you, take care of the things you can control. I woke up today with a several $100 negative balance in my checking account, and I was like, what? I got a notice on my email, and I was like, what? And I was like, I know that can't be right. So I go in there and I check things out. And sure enough, one of these payment systems has done the opposite of what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to give me money and not take money out. So I did what I could do, which was transfer some money over there to hold it so that my account doesn't incur any charges. And then I made some phone calls, figured out what the problem was, and it'll be reversed by Friday. I could have panicked. I could have shut down. I could have gotten angry. I could have yelled at the telephone. I could have yelled at the systems. But no, I took a deep breath and then I went through some process steps to figure out what was happening and what was going on. All right. So all of us at some point in our time and in our life, we're gonna run into situations that might knock the breath out of us for a moment, or 2 moments, or a week, or a month, or in our nation's case, less than 30 days. It feels like every day we're waking up to a new attack on Americans, right? But what can we do in the moment? In the moment, I can take a deep breath and exhale. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I still have mental faculties that are good. I can walk. I can talk. I can drink. I can swallow. All the good stuff. Okay, I'm going to get through this day. I want to read you from Many Thousands Gone, African Americans from Enslavement to Freedom by Virginia Hamilton. This book, this particular copy that I got, this particular copy was taken out of Edgewood Highland Library. I'm imagining that this is a school in Rhode Island. It was discarded by the library there, and I bought it online. Why? Because part of activism work is preserving your own history as people are trying to destroy it and toss it in the trash. This section is this particular section is called A Vanished Enslavement and His Return. In 1750, William Brown of Framingham, Massachusetts, put this notice about his missing property, an enslaved person, in the Boston Gazette. Short, curly hair, his knees more nearly together than common, had on new buckskin breeches, blue yarn stockings, and checked woolen shirt. Whoever shall take up said runaway and convey him to above said master shall receive £10. On all masters of slaves or others are hereby cautioned against concealing or carrying off said servant on penalty of law. Owner Brown's enslaved person disappeared so completely that it was thought he must have gone to sea. Nothing was heard about him for 20 years. But on the evening of March 5th, 1770, the escaped person, whose name was Crispus Attucks, turned up on Dock Square in Boston. At this time, there were many reports of skirmishes between colonial citizens and the British troops who protected Great Britain's interest in America. Attucks, who lived near the square, had heard that a British soldier had beaten a young American boy with his musket. Full of revolutionary zeal, Attucks urged the crowd in the square to help him get rid of the British soldier. Some in the crowd were sailors carrying sticks, and Attucks led them to the custom house on King Street. Menacingly, they moved on the sentry in his box. Just then, 7 British soldiers arrived, commanded by Captain Thomas Preston. "Don't be afraid," Crispus Attucks shouted. "They dare not fire." He and the crowd stood their ground. Then someone hurled a stick at the soldier. The soldier raised his musket and fired, hitting Attucks in the chest. Attucks fell and the crowd surged forward. More shots rang out and another citizen fell to the ground. In all, 5 men fell and not one of them was a British soldier. Crispus Attucks, free from bondage all those years, now lay dead, the victim of what later became known as the Boston Massacre. He was the first martyr of the war that would become known as the American Revolution. So, in case you didn't know that, Crispus Attucks, an indigenous and black man, was the first martyr of the American Revolution. A kidnapped child. Olaudah Equiana was born in Benin, Nigeria in 1745. At the age of 11, he was kidnapped from his home and sold to slave traders along the Nigerian coast. From there, he was taken on a slave ship bound for Barbados in the West Indies. Years later, Equiana would write about his time on that ship. Here are his words. "I was soon put down under the decks and was greeted by such a stench as I had never experienced in my life. I became so sick and low that I was not able to eat, nor had I the least desire to taste anything. Soon, to my grief, 2 of the white men offered me eatables, and on my refusing to eat, one of them held me fast by the hands and laid me across, I think, a windlass, and tied my feet, while the other flogged me severely. I had never experienced anything of this kind before, and in a little time after, amongst the poor chained men, I found some of my own nation. I feared I should be put to death. The white people looked and acted, as I thought, in so savage a manner. I asked my countrymen if these white people had no country, but lived in this hollow place, the ship. They told me that they did not, but came from a distant one. Then how comes it in all our country we have never heard of them? I asked. They told me because they lived so very far off. I asked how the vessel could go. They told me they could not tell, but that there were cloths upon the mast by the help of the ropes I saw, and the vessel went on. Equiana described the misery and death below decks and the despair and suicide above decks among the wretched prisoners. Being strong, he survived the terrifying middle passage, which claimed the lives of many thousands of kidnapped, kidnapped African people. After reaching America, Equiana was sold to Captain Pascal, commander of the Industrious Bee. Captain Pascal renamed him Gustavus Vasa and sent him back to England, where Vasa became the servant for two devout women. They taught him to read the Bible. In this way, he was able to continue his education in the English language, which had begun on the ship, the Industrious Bee. Vassal was sold and resold. He went to sea and was shipped to the West Indies. He was bought by a Philadelphia merchant, a Quaker, and was treated with kindness. He was allowed to earn money and pay for his freedom. Once free, Gustavus Vasa returned to England where he worked to end enslavement, petitioning the British Parliament for its abolition. His autobiography, The Interesting Narrative of the Life of Olaudah Equiana or Gustavus Vasa, was published with great success in London in 1789. Many Africans like Vasa were captured and brought to the coast of Africa by black or Arab slave traders. They were sold to white slave traders for goods, spices, and rum. It was not unusual to find children as well as adults in chains on the slave ships. Aboard ship, none of the captured Africans took their enslavement lightly. Some of them fought back and were killed or thrown overboard. Others, forced by the low ship ceilings to sit in a crouch for 8 to 10 week voyage, died by the hundreds. 30% of them did not survive the middle passage across the ocean from Africa to America. Still others attempted to drown themselves as soon as the ship docked. So don't let people tell you that everybody just went along to get along. No. Survivors burned with hatred of the chains that bound them and those that had carried them away. They grieved, crying for their homelands and families and all they had known and loved. Now, let's talk about the Religious Society of Friends and the Quakers' role in helping runaways. We have some more readings to do today, but this is going to be one of them. The Religious Society of Friends had branched out from England to the American colonies. These Quakers believed strongly that slavery should be abolished, and they were among the first whites to help the running aways, as escaping slaves were often called. They formed an important core group along with black freemen and free women and running aways in the abolition movement. They were also a significant part of the escape network known as the Underground Railroad, or first called the Underground Road, which operated before and during the American Revolution and throughout the 1800s. The Underground Road was neither a road nor underground. It was any number of houses, caves, hay mounds, root cellars, attics, high branches of trees, chimneys, hidden rooms, and empty barns. Any place a running away could hide. It was also all the paths and trails leading to such places. Now, a couple of years back, it's probably maybe 7 or 8 years back, I went on a retreat in Virginia, and I cannot remember the specific town we were in, but it was like farmland, and it was this huge house, and we were all, sort of grouped in different rooms. And I remember being there, and I remember feeling very, very eerie when I was sleeping in this home. And I couldn't describe like the feeling. I could not shake what I was feeling. But as I was getting up the next morning, I heard these chains dragging. It was like right outside my window. And I woke up and I was like, do y'all hear that? And they were like, no, I don't hear that. I was like, I hear chains dragging on the ground. And like I could hear these voices and I could hear chains dragging on the ground outside of my window. And so I came downstairs and I was like, did anybody else hear that? I was like, is there somebody out there? Are they like, is it like farm stuff going on? Because it was a huge farmland, lots and lots of acres. And it was the big main house and then a smaller house. And do you know the owner of the house said, they said, oh, sometimes people tell us that they hear that. This was one of the houses that was on a part of the Underground Railroad. And they proceeded to take us around and show us. the places that they used for the Underground Railroad for this house. I was shook. I see a whole bunch of other people shook because they done zipped off of this live very quickly. They run away. I was shook. I was like, what the heck? But that was one of many experiences I would have in the future, um, with just hearing sounds like that and then coming out to find out later that those were spaces that enslaved people had been in or had been hidden in. The first guides along the road in this underground road were black enslaved people. Resisting their owners, they secretly led running aways from one plantation to the next and eventually out of the South. Occasionally, these black movers would get angry and feel hopeless. Then they would slip away for a time into the great forests. Often they became lost and only barely managed to find their way back to the plantations. There they suffered punishment, whippings, or worse. Sometimes they saw no other way than to run themselves. Free blacks, always in danger of being forced back into bondage, also kept close watch on the road. They often handed running slaves over to Quakers. Some of these Quakers in the South had owned enslaved people, as had the friend who had owned Gustavus Vasa. Others were so uncomfortable owning human property that they allowed their slaves to buy their freedom. There were Southern Quakers who would even purchase the enslaved in order to set them free. Fugitives running out of the slave South to the free North seldom told anyone who they were. The slave owner hunting them might have posted their names and their descriptions, so the less identity they had, the better their chances of escaping. There were 10 to 20 miles between each underground stop. A friend might lead a fugitive from one stop to the next, to a house perhaps. The friend would knock. A question was called out from behind the door. Who's there? Came the reply. A friend with a friend. That meant a Quaker and his or her running away charge were at the door. The password had having been given, the door was open and yet another fugitive became invisible along the line to the north. Now, let me just say this. In 2025, we're going to need some new passwords. It ain't enough gatekeeping going on in the culture. So in 2025, just letting you know, we're going to need some new passwords. What am I reading? I'm reading Many Thousands Gone. Okay? New passwords, people. New passwords. That's all I'm going to say about it. New passwords. Information was passed along by the Underground Telegraph, that is, by word of mouth or by mail from one conductor to the next. The messages were always in code. Dear Grinnell, Uncle Tom says if the roads are not too bad, you can look for those fleeces of wool by tomorrow. Send them on to test the market and price, no back charges. In other words, some runaways could be expected in the morning, and Grinnell should send them farther along the underground road. Running aways considered themselves free once they had crossed the north shore of the Ohio River. Hello, Ohio. Now that's interesting, considering what just went down in Ohio last week. They understood they were free but not safe. There were still dangers, bounty hunters and pro-slavery settlers who might capture a fugitive for the reward posted by the enslaved owner. Southerners called the running aways maroons, wild ones, or desperados. Every day they were free was a reminder to other slaves that escape was possible. Shout out to the Maroons. Nothing except an enslavement uprising upset the slaveholder more than the thought of a Maroon stalking his plantation, bent on leading more people to freedom. Maroons were hunted relentlessly. In 1793, Whitney invented the cotton engine or gin, as it was called, cotton engine, short cotton gin. Okay. While one enslaved person might process a pound of cotton a day, a cotton gin could process 1,000 pounds a day. Thus, far more cotton could be turned into cloth. Cotton became the king of commodities as the textile industry began to boom in the South. With the need for more field hands to pick the cotton to feed into the engine, the demand for slave labor rose dramatically. It can be no accident that the first Fugitive Enslavement Act was passed that same year. The act made it a crime to shelter an enslaved person or to prevent his or her arrest. If the slave owner or his agent caught a running away he owned in a free state, the law allowed the owner to forcibly bring them back into enslavement. And of course, most people resisted, 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 and resisted again. All right. I am now going to read for you some actual letters. And I think this is Ellen Craft. So I want to learn a little bit about her, tying back into to the fugitive enslavement topic. The book I am now reading from is called I Can't Wait to Call You My Wife, African American Letters of Love and Family in the Civil War. Highly recommend that you get a copy of this before you cannot get a copy of this. It's got pictures, it's got letters, it's got photographs. It's got all kind of good stuff in here that documents what went down. Because clearly, schools are not documenting anymore what went down. So we must document and keep our history. Fugitive enslaved persons often wrote down or dictated their personal experiences that was happening in slavery. The many narratives include those of Frederick Douglass, William Wells Brown, Jermaine Logan, Harriet Jacobs, and William and Ellen Craft. They stressed the importance of family and were published broadly in abolitionist newspapers, mainly as a means to convince white Northerners to join the cause of freedom. The Crafts, who had escaped to England after the passage of the 1850 Fugitive Slave Law, quickly made sure that Ellen learned to read and write. When pro slavery advocates circulated a rumor that she was dissatisfied with her freedom, imagine that. Imagine that. Somebody circulating a rumor that you are dissatisfied as a free person. Whew, I can't. Ellen wrote a letter that was published in The Liberator. Abolitionists persistently countered pro slavery propaganda that slaves were content. We got a whole nation right now that is working on propaganda that white people are the most oppressed people in this country. That's propaganda. Let's see what she had to say. This is Ockham School near Ripley, Surrey, England, October 26, 1852. Dear Sir, I feel very much obliged to you for informing me of the erroneous report which has so extensively circulated in the American newspapers, that I had placed myself in the hands of an American gentleman in London on condition that he would take me back to the family who held me as a slave in Georgia. So I write these few lines merely to say that the statement is entirely unfounded, for I have never had the slightest inclination whatever of returning to bondage. And God forbid that I should ever be so false to liberty as to prefer slavery in its stead. In fact, since my escape from slavery, I have got on much better in every respect than I could have possibly anticipated. Though, had it been to the contrary, my feelings in regard to this would have been just the same. For I had much rather starve in England, a free woman, than be a slave for the best man that ever breathed upon the American continent. Girl, I got to sip on that. Wow. Let me read that one more time. Ellen Craft said, I would much rather starve in England a free woman than be a slave for the best man that ever breathed upon the American continent. They was reading people back in 1852. Okay. Whew. Mm-mm-mm. Before moving to England, the Crafts lectured widely about enslavement and their extraordinary escape, which involved fair-skinned Ellen, and they actually have their own book now. Okay, what she said. They actually have their own book now. Let me see. I can't remember the title of it, but maybe I can look it up once we're done. Before moving to England, they lectured about it. Um, Fair-skinned Ellen posing as William's male enslaved owner. They have an actual book out about it now of their own story, where she dressed as a man and she posed as her husband's slaveholder because she was that fair skinned. She could pass. And they did this and they traveled by first class railway. This is smart. In the same issue of the Liberator that William Lloyd Garrison published Ellen's letter, William Craft's letter to the Massachusetts Anti Slavery Society underscored the couple's hatred of slavery when he announced to his American friends the birth of their first child. The idea of bringing a child into slavery wrenched the hearts of enslaved parents. So here they are. This is a drawing rendering from their photographs, but that is the Crafts. Okay, so because she was so fair skinned, she was able to dress as a man and ride first class, pretending to be his owner and get out of slavery. When I tell you that's some genius right there. This is what they had to say. My dear Mr. May, you and other friends will heartily rejoice to hear that my wife has given birth to our first freeborn baby. Nothing can be more consoling to the heart of a fugitive enslaved person than to look upon his newborn infant and feel that there are no chains and fetters waiting in readiness to grasp and stunt his physical structure. Oh my God. Listen to what he just said, because I don't know if you have not been to the National Museum here in DC of African American History and Culture. When you go in there, there are baby shackles. I kid you not. They are little, tiny, teensy, tiny baby shackles. So when he talks about this actually is confirming that when your baby is born, they shackle your baby. He's talking about how relieved he is that there will be no chains and fetters waiting with readiness to grasp his baby and stunt its physical structure. I want us to think about that for a moment. They were putting babies in chains before they could even have cognizant idea of what chains meant. Sounds a little bit like some of these cages that they're putting children in. And no hell-born despotism. Mm. And no hell-born despotism. That's what he calls enslavement. No hell-born despotism like American slavery hanging over his head, ready to drop and crush his intellectual faculties to the dust, should they dare to expand beyond the tyrant's will. I'm going to read that one more time because this is coming from a father who is so thankful that his child will not be born into enslavement. I'm going to read it one more time, what he just said. He said, my wife has given birth to our first freeborn babe. Nothing can be more consoling to the heart of a fugitive slave than to look upon his newborn infant and feel that there are no chains and fetters waiting in readiness to grasp and stunt his physical structure, and no hell-born despotism like American slavery hanging over his head, ready to drop and crush his intellectual faculties to the dust, should they dare to expand beyond the tyrant's will. We got people right now who are angry because Black people dare to expand beyond the tyrant's will. And you trying to tell me it ain't generational? It's not epigenetic? I'm going to just have to say law for that. We're moving to our last book for today. All right. As you can see, I'm trying to load you up. If I could, by osmosis, just flick my hand and give y'all all of this at one time, I would. All right. Last book here. This is a contemporary writing. This is called, well, the book is called Black Love Letters. It's love letters about blackness from black people. This one is called My Black Body by Malachi Elijah. My black body has been loved. Has it been cherished? My black body's been kissed. Has it been held? My black body's been touched. Has it been felt? My black body is resented. My black body is wanted. Once upon a time, my black body was needed, and still it is. My black body is of the earth. Look at how we treat our earth. My black body is a storm. There's calm and there's destruction, all trapped in there. Wind gashes it, the breeze possesses it. My body is like water, at once clear and fresh. We fight its pollution more than we nurture its body. My black body is a flower. Let it blossom. My black body is pollen sprinkled on a bee. My black body is a seed dispersed by a sneeze like gust. My black body is not the tree but the fruit. Strange. My black body is honest. Any falsehood you, we, or I hold is not our own. These black bodies are constantly undoing something taught by fools who dig only as deep as they are paid to, want to, think to, pray to. Strong, assertive, vulnerable, pure is my black body, not strained by disdain coming from a phobic mind frame. My black body is a book you cannot skim through. My black body is thoughtful. My black body is curiously thirsting for knowledge of self. Taught to be considerate, my black body will make mistakes. My mind has not always recognized our body's beauty. My black body is a temple. I should pray more often, meditate on that, and work it out. Not drink, not drug, but thinks of a clever line about how they do anyway. Deletes it for being contrived. My black body is a gift, not a token or a prize or a cup half full. My black body is a mirror. What do you see? Some leave with a crack while others reflect clearly. My black body is music. Turn me on and dance with no care for who scoffs or stares. My black body is quiet. My black body is a deep breath felt in the belly. My black body is a target for bullets and slurs. It's a good thing I pay no attention to your words. But the bullets, well, it's not impenetrable, my black body. It cuts, bruises, bleeds, and swells. You put my black body through hell for fear of the idea my black body is heavenly, earthly, and firstly divine. Your being is too much for some people. Some will feel there are too many black bodies in this writing and may find it repetitive. You are confused by my black body. You could only hope to understand. Until that day, mock, murder, mimic, maim, my black body is ash, so I moisturize daily, soaking in cocoa and shea mixed with only the sun. This black body is one of one, stunning. My black body is present and restless. My black body has already been buried. My black body is alive until it isn't. All right. Well, I hope you have enjoyed our readings on today. If you want to chop it up with me, I will bring you on camera and we can chop it up about some of what we've read today. We have learned about the crafts. We have learned about the Society of Friends, the Quakers, and some of their role in helping the runaways. Um, we have learned about Ellen Craft. We have looked at um, some letters from that particular time. And my goal here is going to be to continue to share our stories share our own words about what was happening to us. A lot of times we are reading from the lens of people who are trying to tell us about the enslaved versus the lens of hearing their own stories. So I want to do that this Black History Month is really help us to dig into what they were saying because it's pretty powerful as you can see today. If you're watching by YouTube, I want to thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to try to continue this conversation over here on my Facebook page, Black Table Talk. You can join us here. If I don't see you over there, we'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Be well, and most importantly, be light. All right.